Let's just go back and explain what the word locavore means in case not everybody's familiar with it.
It means those individuals that are seeking out food that is produced in their local community. You know, so some people make that effort to, I'm only going to eat food that comes from 50 miles from my home or 200 miles from my home. And by doing that, you're eating seasonally, you're eating what's fresh, you're eating food that hasn't traveled, and so it hasn't incurred this, you know, greenhouse gas and carbon, use of carbon in pollution. So it's bringing it back home.
So one of the movements that you're involved in the food movement, is biodynamics. Now, we've all heard about organic for years, and most of us who are sitting in here obviously have had the opportunity to eat organic food. We're very, very fortunate. But why don't you sort of tell us about the mystery of the biodynamic
Well,
movement?
the mystery of the biodynamic is based in organic gardening and organic agriculture. So as a foundation, we have a farm or a garden that there's no use of pesticides or chemicals. We're looking at natural fertilizers, natural pest control. But it's a holistic view, and we talked about this at lunch actually yesterday, in that we look at the influence of forces in nature that have an effect on the plant. So if we break it down, we see that the earth supports plants and trees. It supports us too, but the plant is rooted in the earth, and it develops its nutrition from that earth. And so there's a force that comes up from the earth. We know that the moon has an influence. It rises the tides, it makes people crazy. And in agriculture, we see that there is a cycle of plant growth according to the moon cycle. So in biodynamics, we go out a little bit further holistically and go, okay, well, what's the influence of Jupiter? What's the influence of Mars? What's the influence of the constellations? And so we look at that and we study it, and we find that those things have different effects on parts of the plant. And so we can calendar when is the best time to plant a root crop, because the moon is in front of Earth constellation. And so if you plant seeds after the full moon, a lot of times they'll just sit in the ground and then wait until after the new moon, till we swing up to the full moon and those forces that pull upward. So paying attention to the moon is an amazing process that you can do. You don't need any tools, you just need to look up in the sky.
But philosophically, and I completely understand what you're saying, what can we take out of that if we've got a planter box outside and we're planting tomatoes? Seriously, or zucchini, or basil.
You know, the simplest thing to do is to pay attention to the moon. The moon is our closest planetary influence. And so if you watch the cycle of the moon, as the moon becomes full, it has this lifting quality. And so the plants and the seeds grow really rapidly right before the full moon. In fact, 2 days before the full moon is the best day to plant your seeds. The seeds will just come out of the ground like that. And then it goes from this, what we would call a fruitful period during the full moon, to what's called a barren period, which is the new moon or no moon.
So my brother-in-law is an organic rancher, farmer in Idaho, and I assure you he is not looking at the position of Jupiter when he's planting his potatoes.
But I bet you he pays attention to the moon.
He does, but so in this, which I can see you're taking very seriously, how can, talk a little more about it, because it's easy for us to be talking about the influence of Jupiter, but how do we take it back, out into our lives or make it relevant?
Well, it's paying attention. It's watching there's cycles in nature, and if we pay attention to those cycles, we can become one with those cycles. And so the thing is, it's hard enough to grow food and plants, but if you can get yourself in the natural rhythm, then you're fighting less. You're moving along with the flow. You're riding the wave of natural cycles. And so at its simplest, it's really following the cycles of nature and being a part of it rather than outside of it and having to fight against it.
I was reading about one technique that you use to bury either broth or ram's horns, or talk a little bit about that, because I liked it because it was very mystical, but I just couldn't imagine, big agriculture doing that, so.
So by taking the cow's horn, which is like an antenna that is tuned into the cosmos, and we take that horn and use it as a vessel, and we take the manure, which is essentially something that's been grown on the earth and processed by the cow, and comes out the other end. So that manure has an intelligence of that site where it was eating. That goes into the cow horn, gets buried in the earth at the winter time. And so during winter, the earth comes alive. You know, that's when the grass turns green and the soil is moist. And so the manure goes through this decomposition process of enlivenment with these earthly forces. We bring it out in the spring, and it goes in as fresh green manure, and it comes out in the spring as this beautiful black, sweet-smelling compost or soil. So that is very potent. It's filled with life force. So we take that, a handful of it, put it in a bucket of water, and stir it for an hour, one direction, and then the other direction for an hour. And those forces that are in that manure are transferred into the water. That water is then sprayed out onto the ground, and that enlivens the soil.
You'll be doing this at home. We'll be printing out the sheet.
We've actually done this. We've done this with.
I love this.
We actually had guests here when we were doing it, and they were
Let's do it
stirring with us
tomorrow, right.
and spraying. It was really wonderful.
Is the Golden Door being treated this way now?
Yes.
Okay, we're all
Yeah.
going out by the light of
Yeah,
the moon.
those radishes that you ate tonight. It's the American consumer searching for that. I don't want to call it a silver bullet, but we're all looking for something that can provide us with the best source of nutrition in the most concentrated form so that we can achieve optimum health. You know, and so we look for those things that are jam-packed with nutrients, phytonutrients, and those things that fight disease and keep us healthy.
So where are we going? So we're in 2015. Where's this whole thing going right now?
Well, I mean, I think that you're going to see more herbs that have medicinal properties. My exploration right now is Ayurvedic.
Will you explain
medicine.
that to everybody?
It's a form of medicine that was developed over thousands of years in India. And I'm finding that there's all these plants I've never heard of that have all these amazing qualities. And so I'm going through this process of studying, you know, which ones I feel would resonate with my own health. And I'm finding that, I can actually get this, you know, I can't even pronounce the names, but, you know, I just got this one particular, it's like a jam, which is native to India. It's very fast growing, and they call it the miracle tree. And it's got more calcium than milk, more vitamin C than bananas, more vitamin C than oranges, and more potassium than bananas. And it's got 6 of the essential amino acids.
Does it taste good?
It's as good as kale.
Okay. All right.
But you can put it in your salad, you can juice it, you can dry it and make it into tea. It's being planted throughout Africa as supplemental nutrition because it takes no fertilizer, very little water, and it grows really fast.
But I was just talking to the lovely Robin, right, who's from London and lives in Fulham, and it's the middle of winter, and you live in Chicago, right? And so people don't have access to the outside. How do we think about this so that the food that we eat should nurture us when we're not in a situation where we're in Southern California, but that we can have the benefit of that?
Well, it's, you know, you should have a farmer as a friend.
I have a new friend here. We now have a friend.
It's really true. I mean, we are so fortunate in this day and age because we have farmers markets all across the nation. And so you don't have to be a farmer. You don't have to grow it yourself. But you can have a farmer. A classic question these days is, who's your farmer?